It is a game day in Madison, Badger fans. You have made it. Before we get there, we got another special edition of Seamus Says for you. He's got a different take on the Wisconsin Badgers running backs. He's previewing the position he is watching most closely tonight against Miami. All that and more on a game day edition of Talkin Badgers. Get up and get loud, Badgers fans. It is game day in Madison. You have waited. You have waited longer than you have in over 20 years for this day. And it is finally here. It is finally here. Wisconsin kicks off the season at 8 p.m. God's time inside Camp Randall Stadium on Barry Alvarez Field as the 2025 Wisconsin Badgers take the field against the Miami RedHawks. I am excited. I'm excited to be in attendance. I'm excited to get back at it after what has just been too long of an off season. Not just football-wise, but like me personally, I was there in Denver. The last game I've attended, last Badger game I've attended was, this didn't even intend to come out as a humble brag, but it was the national championship that the Wisconsin Badgers women's hockey team won. And man, does that feel like a lifetime ago since I was there inside Ritter Arena. Man, does it feel like a lifetime ago since I was inside what was the Pepsi Center, now is Ball Arena, inside of Denver. Man, does it feel like so long ago. Oh, when I was on hand for a Wisconsin Badgers football team losing to the Minnesota Golden Gophers, not getting bowl eligible. I have a feeling that I might be on hand for a game with similar stakes if we fast forward to November. But that's the end of the journey, right? We got to start our stories where we start them, and we're going to start them today against the Miami of Ohio RedHawks, the Wisconsin Badgers, on Big Ten Network. If you were a concerned YouTube TV subscriber concerned with a network dispute, they've reached a settlement. They have reached a temporary agreement. Your Badger watching is safe. Your Badger watching is safe. And we're going to break down a little bit more of the game. I hope you caught our episode of After Dark with the guys Dylan Graff, Jason Long, of course, Braden Cooper. I hope you caught that episode. If you have not yet, scroll back into your feed after this one. Head to youtube.com/@TalkinBadgers, and you can find that excellent content where we preview tonight's game as well. But today we are talking to my BadgerNotes.com colleague, Seamus Rohrer, about his column, about everything he wants to see from every position group on the field inside Camp Randall Stadium tonight. That's coming up next here on Talkin Badgers. And now we bring back into the show Seamus Rohrer, our columnist over at BadgerNotes.com. Seamus, it's good to see you again. Glad we're making this a little bit a part of everybody's week here on Talkin Badgers.
Great to see you, Kedrick. Happy game day, man. It's finally here.
It is happy game day to you. For all of our listeners, if you want to join some of us at a live game chat this evening, I know Dylan Graff will be in there. Perhaps Seamus will be popping in there himself. There's a link in the description to join us at Bucky's Burrow for a free game chat with our group of Badgers fans over there with our message board partners. Seamus, I wanted to have you on to talk about your column published on the site this morning, previewing your expectations for every position group in the season opener. First, why was that the angle you wanted to take to preview today's game?
Well, that's a good question. I think I just wanted to organize it by position. And, you take a look at this game. There's not many games where on this schedule where you can look at it and you have the luxury of saying, what do I want to see out of each position? What do I want to glean from this game otherwise? But there's not a lot of games where you have the luxury of just being like, I can be picky with what I want to see rather than let's just get out of here with a win and please, for the love of all that is holy, get to bowl eligibility. But so, 17.5 point favorites. I figure they have a little breathing room. So I kind of just wanted to see, and it's the opener too. There's a lot of question marks, especially with a new offensive system in town. So yeah, that was just kind of my thought process for this one.
We're gonna start not quite right at the top, because we're gonna leave the candy for folks to go over and click at the site to find out what you want to see from the quarterbacks. But I wanna go one line down to the running backs, because I think you have a little bit of a different take than maybe we all did on After Dark the other night. I know Jason Long was really hoping to see a Dylan Jones kind of bell cow performance tonight. You take a little bit of a different angle. You say that you don't want this to just be the Dylan Jones show. So why is that?
Listen, I'm just as excited to see Dylan Jones run as I think the rest of, uh, Badger Nation is out there. For me, I want to see them all. I want to see all three backs, and I think that this is the game to do it. Look, you're gonna get Dylan Jones his carries. I think he's certainly a first and second down back, but Darian Dupree with that receiving ability, those receiving chops that he flashed as a freshman, I want to see him out there on third down. I want to see him running routes. Maybe we'll see who stays into the backfield to block on some of those passing downs too. And then Kedrick Seamus, I mean, it's a guy who you watched him run last year, and he was just so much stronger and faster than he was even the year before that. So I'd love to see where he is, in 2025. But again, just opener, heavy favorites. I want to see what they've got. I know you don't want to tip your hand too much and show too much of the system, maybe. But man, I'd love to see all three of these backs run tonight, and I think we will.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's going to be some middle ground between there being a Dylan Jones feature back and a guy by committee, because I wonder just how much Jeff Grimes is just trying to figure out what he has in that room in a full game setting, because as Luke Fickell alluded to at his weekly press conference, this is kind of the hardest room to develop or to assess in a camp setting, because you're not
absolutely
going full tackle. So I wonder what you think. If you're trying to assess kind of a guess, is this going to be like an equal carry situation between the three? Do you think, I know you talked about what you would like to see happen. What do you think you will see happen?
Yeah, that's another good question, man. I think that you are going to see Dylan get the bulk of the carries, just because that's how the chips have sort of stacked up in camp. And he's kind of emerged as that guy, the bell cow guy. He's, in terms of, you look at those three backs, he is probably the most physical of the three. He's short and stout. He's a decisive runner. I just think that he's the kind of guy who you can lean on with those carries. And also, you have seen Dupree run a little bit last year. I mean, he was the only running back to burn his red shirt last year. You've seen a little bit of him. I think the staff is really anxious to see Dylan Jones in a competitive game setting. So yeah, I would expect him to lead the way for sure. But again, I would love to see all three, and I think we will. It's interesting too, man. Last year, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how it bothered me, because Fickell, when he's talking about Kedrick Seamus and his 8.3 yards a carry, he's like, well, it's a product of the system. I think I might mention that in the piece, but well, you got a new system in town now, so let's see how he looks with this Jeff Grimes offense.
A product of the system that he decided he didn't want anymore too. So
exactly,
not that change wasn't needed, but just let's poke holes where they're easy to poke. The next position group I wanted to talk about, part of the piece, is the tight ends. You mentioned that it feels like the Badgers tight ends have been 1 year away for the entire Fickell era. I have my own little take on that I want to get to in a second, but what do you expect to see from this group that is down Tucker Ashcraft, that is kind of rolling with a hybrid? There's a tight end. There's also an H-back situation, a FCS transfer, and Lance Mason that we have not seen in Madison. There's a lot of questions here tonight. And what is it that you want to see?
There's a lot of questions. But what I can remember writing is that I just want the tight ends. I just want to see them be a force for good. rather than just seemingly taking up space on the football field, which might be harsh, but it is kind of what was going on the past couple years in Longo's offense. And I don't think that that's necessarily his fault, Fickell's fault, the players' fault. I mean, they just simply didn't have the requisite athletes that Longo liked to use in that system, just in terms of the pure receiving archetype of tight end. I think Lance Mason is closer to that than you've had in several years. Now, I would love to see him, at, I guess we're not quite at the Big Ten level yet, but I'd love to see him, at this level of college football. I wonder how much they ask him to block. I mean, I presume that that's why you have Jackson Aker listed there in that co-starting role. So, I'm looking for them to just not be a detriment to this offense. I know that Grimes likes to use his tight ends. I just don't know how, how involved in this passing game they're going to be able to get Lance Mason, how quickly they're going to kind of be able to get him up to speed. But I think Grant Steck is the most interesting name on that 2 deep. Super competitive kid by all accounts. And he's 6'6" and he can do both. He can block and he can catch. So I'd love to see how they try to incorporate him. We'll see if that happens in this opener. But I still think that this tight end room is kind of a mess right now.
It is. And as I mentioned at the top of this segment, it's felt like they've been a year away for the entire Luke Fickell era. I think this is one of these position groups that has kind of been bubbling under the radar as a problem position group in Madison for a little while now, because it doesn't get the same kind of flash as the defensive line where you really notice it, the quarterbacks where you really notice it. And in an era where they brought in Phil Longo and it was kind of easy to hand wave away, like, okay, they're going to throw to the receivers more. It's not going to be as much about the tight ends. It is what it is. But they didn't have a real tight end in 2022 either. It was Clay Cundiff, Rucci. And some of this was because in 2023, they got to camp and all of a sudden, Clay Cundiff's not coming. Jack Eschenbach's not coming. They're retiring. Like, they haven't had a real tight end since Jake Ferguson.
No, they haven't. And this is, I say, you know what? It feels to me, honestly, it feels a lot like the outside linebacker room, which I don't know if you were planning on getting to, but they haven't had a real, at least pass rushing outside linebacker since Nick Herbig. So, but man, I almost forgot about that whole situation. Yeah, you get to camp, no Eschenbach, no Cundiff, and all of a sudden you got a true freshman, Tucker Ashcraft, coming in. It's been a weird position over the past few years, man. It's just some strange happenings. And here we are. And here I'm sitting here again, like, well, they might be a year away. I don't know who's really ready to contribute, who's really ready to be a 3-down tight end in this offense. So, yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest mysteries on the roster, if you ask me.
Yeah, to me, it's always seemed like a hard position to figure out what your development is, because in high school, you tend to just throw a tweener in there, like kind of a really big-bodied guy who's too big to be a wide receiver, but maybe not big enough to throw as an actual lineman. So the development arc there is really hard, where you sometimes have kids like playing the position truly at a high level for the first time. But yeah, we shall see. On the defensive side, there is a position group you said that you will be watching the closest tonight of all the others. Which is that and why?
Well, that's the inside linebackers. And, I think I've talked about it on this show with you before, but just Dequan Finn, can't wait to watch him play. And you look at the skill set of the Badgers linebackers, Allegro, Curtis, they're fast. They have sideline to sideline speed. So, in theory, that's actually a great counter to Finn on some of those RPOs, some of those read options where he can keep it. He can give it to his back. I mean, he's a dynamic runner. And he's got quite a strong arm too. So those two players in particular, Allegro and Curtis, I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And Curtis in particular too. I mean, he's got all of the physical talent in the world, but you just want to see him process these plays more. You want to see him diagnose these plays a little better and just, I don't know, kind of see what's happening in front of him a little more clear, because if he can just trust his instincts and go out there and play, man, that kid is so talented. So I don't think that they're going to have I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. I Allegro, I've got a lot of trust in. Curtis, we'll see. But I think this is a great game to get your feet wet and see just where he is in year 3.
I think so too. This was a group we talked about a lot on After Dark, and I think one of the questions we want to see is how much behind Attack Curtis, behind. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on who's starting beside Attack Curtis. Who I am.
Allegro.
Yes, thank you. I wonder how much run the guys behind him get and how much each of them get. Thomas Heiberger, Mason Posa, Cooper Catalano, all three of them listed in the two deep. Heiberger came on late last year after getting injured in camp. Clearly, they want him to play a bigger role. I wonder what we will see from those three. What do you want to see from the reserves tonight?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm curious how much they'll play. I think because this game is set up to put a lot of pressure on those inside backers. I don't know if I would expect to see them too early. If the Badgers jump out to a considerable lead, I could see them playing. They're definitely going to play on special teams. Man, I feel like of those three, though, the one I'm most intrigued by is Cooper Catalano, man. And I've got to see him play when I dropped by for spring practice. Man, he was just everywhere, just all over the field in pass coverage too, but also snuffing out runs like he did in high school. And I think the way the staff talks about him is so funny to me. You hear Mike Tressel talk about him, and he's like, "Yeah, Wisconsin's all-time leading tackler in state. But you didn't know if that was going to translate, and you get him on campus, and it translates, and here he is, and he looks really good." So I mean, he's someone I'm dying to see on the field. I just don't know with how much pressure is going to be on these linebackers to sort of make the right read and the right play tonight. I'm not sure you're going to see him too early.
Are you worried about what that means for the rest of the season if we don't see them a lot early on in the year?
In what way?
Just the competition gets intense really quickly, and injuries are always a concern. It's football. Like, are you worried that if some of these guys can't get their feet wet now, they're going to be thrown to the fire and then some later on?
Listen, I'm all for getting their feet wet. I just don't put them in on a critical third down or something. I mean, you get them, get them some live reps. I certainly wouldn't be opposed to that. I mean, and like I said, they're going to play on special teams. To be honest with you, but that's super interesting. I don't know just how comfortable the staff feels with that depth in that room. I know that they're both obviously very high on both Catalano and Posa and Heiberger as well. But just deploying them tonight, we'll see. I think we'll learn a lot about how comfortable the staff feels.
That feels right to me. Let's go over and close with the outside linebackers, where you want to see just some semblance of a pass rush. I think this is fair. Who do you think might bring that?
It's a good question. When you listen to Matt Mitchell, outside linebackers coach, he seems to believe that he has a better group of pass rushers this year. And when he mentioned Tyrese Fearbury, Kentucky transfer, mentioned Mason Rieger, the Louisville transfer. And he also mentioned Sebastian Sheeks, who's been playing on that outside, although he figures to be more of like a first and second down guy because apparently he sets really good edges. But I think, I mean, Rieger had the big fall camp, obviously. Fearbury is he's a freaky athlete, and he's long and he's fast. But honestly, when I dropped by this team, when I dropped by to watch this team practice, in terms of just a pure pass rusher, the best I saw was Nick Clayton, man, the true freshman, with his speed off the edge. And I think he's someone that actually does have maybe sort of a pass rush moves bag, as I allude to in the column. Obviously something that he's still working on. And he's very young, but man, he has that get off the line of scrimmage that just pops immediately. And so I don't know how much they're going to play him, but man, I mean, if he's your bet, he might be your best pure pass rusher. He's got some development to do physically, obviously, and the Badgers, they like their outside linebackers pretty big these days, and he's not really close to that range to where I see him on the field on like a first and second down. But man, put him out there on a third and long. I'd love to see him try to get after the quarterback because I think he could be the best pure pass rusher in the room.
One guy you mentioned in the piece, and I think this is kind of everyone who talks about the Badgers on a regular basis kind of has them placed in one of two camps on a guy like Daryl Peterson, who you say you are out on as a pass rusher.
As a pass rusher.
Right. I am more Daryl Peterson curious, I'll call it, because I think last year was undeniably a down year for him, right? Not his most excellent season in terms of production. But this is a guy with 10.5 TFLs the year before that, 4.5 sacks the year before that. Those 10.5 TFLs placed him in the top 10 of the Big Ten in 2023. I don't know. Do you not believe there is a case for a something in the middle between a 2023 and a 2024 Daryl Peterson?
Well, what's something in the middle? 2 sacks? Like,
fair enough.
I mean, I just listen. And like I wrote, you know, he's a program guy, man. He's a culture guy. What is he, a 5th year at this point? Like, he's a locker room guy. He's so invaluable to your team. And he's part of that leadership group that Fickell likes to talk about, obviously. And again, look, put him on the field on early downs. I think he actually is a pretty good run defender. But I just, how many times do I have to be fooled? It's just not working. When you put him out there to rush the passer consistently, it does the eye test. I don't see him beating his tackles consistently. You look at his pass rush win rate, his percentages and all that. If you're a PFF kind of guy, it's just not there. And this is a position that you can't really wait around for production for someone to pop anymore. So I think there's a lot of guys in this room that are, you know, hungry to get their shot, especially you look at a guy like Mason Rieger, you know, and Peterson. I understand it's both of their last years in college, but man, I just haven't seen it from Peterson yet. And it just feels like you're beating a dead horse at this point. I would just love to see what else the room has in terms of a pass rush.
I think that's fair. I think a regression up year for Daryl Peterson probably does more to help bolster your run defense than it does your pass rush. I think that is a fair assessment. Seamus, I want to close this with something of a weekly recurring feature we're gonna do here when we have you on. Our final Family Feud style intrigue into what you think is going to happen here tonight. Well, Wisconsin Badgers, are they going to win or lose tonight? Seamus says
it's a win. It's a win. I wrote it in a column about a week ago. It's still a win. I don't know if they cover. I think it's going to be a sort of a possessions or at a premium kind of game. I know they're going to want to get the run game going. I imagine Miami's going to try to get the run game going. We'll see how that works. To be honest, I know this isn't what Badger fans want to hear probably, but I could envision a very similar game to last year's opener in Western Michigan. Hopefully they're not trailing into the fourth quarter. But I could see possessions being at a premium, you know, heavy focus on the ground game. So that I don't know if they're going to cover that 17.5 point spread. I do think they win comfortably. But there's a lot that I'm looking forward to see, and particularly, like you said, man, those inside linebackers and Dequan Finn, Tackett Curtis, especially. I'm looking at you. But it's going to be fascinating, man. And yeah, so I got a comfortable win. Not sure they cover, just purely because of the style of play that I expect to see tonight. But yeah, 1-0, Kedrick, 1-0.
That's where you got to start. All right. Seamus Rohrer of BadgerNotes.com. His full column is linked in the show description, which will have your primer on every position group tonight. Good read. Read it before we got on here this morning. Seamus, thanks again for joining us here on Talkin Badgers.
Appreciate you having me, Kedrick. Anytime, man.
Thanks again to Seamus for joining us here on Talkin Badgers. We will be going live tonight after the game. Me, BadgerNotes.com founder Dylan Graff, perhaps some others, live tonight after the game in our YouTube feed, youtube.com/@TalkinBadgers, immediately following the game, because we gotta get all of you to bed eventually, right? And I gotta get myself to bed eventually. So stay tuned to the feed. Hit subscribe on youtube.com/@TalkinBadgers. It is free, and hit that bell so you get notified as soon as we go live right after the game. Get our instant reaction from what should hopefully be a win for the Wisconsin Badgers tonight to make all of you fine people who are listening happy. Hopefully they can win for all of you. We'll do that. Have a little bit of maybe a more measured reaction on Friday in your feed, and then it is off to the races against Middle Tennessee. So for BadgerNotes.com, my name is Kedrick Stumbris. I've been your host here on Talkin Badgers. That was Seamus Rohrer, columnist. His column linked in the podcast description. You can join us for free during the game tonight in our game chat, courtesy of our message board partners over at Bucky's Burrow. That Discord link to join is in the podcast description. Until we talk to you all this evening on Wisconsin.